in this video, we're finally going to be able to give the client some specific advice. So we've drawn this efficient frontier, and we say, all right, this is how you should invest, right? But if the client comes in and says, I want a 20% return, they would be right there on the graph. But exactly what volatility is that, and what combination of these 5 stocks, Apple, Home Depot, Coke, Microsoft, and Target, is that? Because that's what I need to buy. I can't buy a portfolio X and a portfolio Y. I need to buy some combination of those 5 stocks. And if I do that for a 20% return, how much risk will I have to take? So I'm going to type in here 20%, because you say to the client what return you want, I'm going to be able to type that number in. Well, if a portfolio X and Y did exist, this is how you would solve for their weights. You'd say the return of the portfolio minus the return for Y, and this is return for Y, divided by the return of X minus the return for Y. That's the weight in portfolio X, and equal to 1 minus that is the weight in Y. Those are big numbers. It doesn't seem to make sense. That's fine. It doesn't really make sense. That's okay. We're going to look. These are the numbers we invest with, and that's going to be what's important. What about the volatility? Well, the volatility is equal to the square root, and I have this in red so you can see the blue is input, the red's output, and I'm leaving these alone because they don't really matter. Square root of the weight squared, so that's weight of X squared times the variance of X plus the weight of Y. That's going to be squared times the variance of Y plus 2 times the weight of X times the weight of Y times the covariance. I don't have to lock any of those down because I'm not copying them. And there, that's 15.97. So look, 20. Does that look like it's about 15.97? And yeah, it does. So 25, and that's so you can kind of visually see if the numbers here match up with the graph, and that gives you some confidence that you have this done correctly. I'm going to move this graph over to here because I need to see these weights. So my weight in Apple is the amount I have in X. I'm going to lock that down, times the amount of Apple in X. So I'm 392% X, and X is 55% Apple. Then I'm minus 292% in Y, and Y is, I need to lock that down, and Y is 66% Apple. Then I am 24% Apple overall. Copy that down, and then these 5 numbers, excuse me, and let me get the border back there. Those should add to 100, so I come right here and alt equal, and that adds to 100%, and that checks out. So now I've been able to say for a client to come in and want a certain return, 25%, then those are the weights, and that's the volatility. So really want to make sure you get this, and just one more run through. So if you understand it, you can kind of stop now, but if not, what's this telling me? Let's go to 30% for a different number. 30%, that's the return of 30%, and the volatility is going to be somewhere above 20. Yeah, 22.44, so that looks correct. Well, what is that specifically? Well, I know if I put 79% of my money in X and 20% of my money in Y, I'm going to get a 30% return. And just to prove that, 79% of your money in X plus 20% of your money in Y, that equals 30%. Okay, so now that I know that, the next question is, what is the volatility? Well, the volatility is the square root of, and the same formula you've seen before, if I have 2 risky assets, it's this weight squared. Let me just double click on this. The weight of X squared times its variance, which I don't square here because it's variance, that's already squared, plus the weight of Y squared times its variance, which is already squared, plus 2 times the weights times the covariance. Square root of all of that, that's the volatility. So how much of that, now I have $1 million, how much should I put in Apple? Well, I have 79% in X, and X is 55% Apple, and 20% in Y, and Y is 66% Apple. So somewhere between those two numbers, right? And it's 57%. So I just follow through with all that. And this, again, this is just for short sales. Short sales are allowed. The negative number means I have a short sell position.